welcome to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast with your hosts, Brent Aiken, David Pruitt, and Russell Martin. This podcast is all about equipping, encouraging, and inspiring youth pastors weekly with topics that are brought to the table by youth pastors from all over the world. And now, here's your host for this week, Brent Aiken. Hey, and welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, we wanted to welcome you and invite you over to our website, studentministryconversations.org. There you can find all of our previous episodes, show notes, and blog articles. Our goal with this podcast is that you are inspired, encouraged, and equipped to be a better student pastor for the church that you are serving in. And so today we have the privilege of sitting down with Rick Eubanks, and Rick is correct me if I'm wrong, the state director of the National Network of Youth Ministry. And so Rick is over the entire massively large state of Texas, which means he drives a really, really long way and goes to a lot of long car rides to get to everywhere he has to go. But with that, Rick, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. Just tell us a little bit about you before we take off.
Thanks, Brett. Well, I just started my 54th year of youth ministry. I'm not over it yet. For 50 years, I was a music and youth minister at only 3 different churches. I tend to stay a long time, which is, I think, highly valuable. And 3 years ago, I transitioned into being the National Network of Youth Ministry state coordinator for, like you said, 254 counties, over 3.3 million students. And it's a daunting task, but I don't do that. What I do is I work through our wonderful team members like you and network leaders and youth pastors all around the state. And for example, last week we recorded 667 prayer walks on campuses across the state from all areas. And I was so excited to see that. And so we're starting to make some impacts there. But I love that. I'm married. We got married, grew up in Fort Worth. My wife and I are both from Fort Worth. I went to Texas Wesleyan with her where we met, and went to Southwestern Seminary with a music and Master of Music degree. And I started doing youth work at age 19 when some of my youth pastors allowed me to do some things. I was kind of an intern back when we were inventing youth ministry. It was exciting, and became a Christian when I was 12 years old in the west side of Fort Worth. So I had a good legacy there of being under some people that, well, some of the professors from seminary went to my church, and so I had some really cool people to hang out with. Struggled in and out as a high school student, was in a rock band. The Lord led me as a senior in high school to get out of that band, although there was nothing wrong with it. It was awesome. But I became basically a campus minister as a senior in high school. And the Lord from there directed me to love young people. I sat with the kids that nobody else would sit with. The very things probably I would encourage students to do today. So got married, had 2 wonderful children. They're both in ministry. One of my son-in-laws is he's the worship pastor at Second Baptist in Houston, the main campus, and my other son-in-law is he's the CEO for Links International, a missions organization in 64 countries. My daughters work with them. They're both in ministry. My oldest daughter does the graphics, media, and such for Links International. Also, they're all worship leaders. My youngest daughter works at Second Baptist Academy doing dance, and she also is a music teacher. So it's funny, they've seen all this ministry going on, and they're still hanging in there. So with all the good and bad they have. I was at first at Crestmont Baptist Church in Burleson, Texas, stayed there 21 years, have helped with church plants, actually ended up going back to Burleson. Between there, we were in Sugar Land. But while I was at Crestmont Baptist in 1990, some cool things happened, which was our students kind of kick-started this thing we now call See You at the Pole. They were the influencer for that. And so just through a series of events, I got to play my part in that. And we'll talk about that a little later. But right now, what I'm trying to do is really impact leaders and those that influence students, because we know that we're losing 1 million students a year from the faith, not just from church. I'm doing everything I can to reverse the trajectory of Christianity for this generation, working with Next Move Global, Next Move DFW, our national network here, Dare to Share, and a number of organizations. We're all working together. And my main goal in Texas is to see a prayer, care, and share ministry, a sustainable prayer, care, and share ministry identified on every campus in the state, where everyone can hear the Jesus story from someone they know and have an opportunity to grow in discipleship and then multiply their lives. So that's kind of about me. I'm a musician. I lead worship still as I'm able. Play keys and guitar, and love doing that. I like to go to Top Golf occasionally, hit some balls, uh, do some fun things like that. Love to travel, and that's a good thing because Texas is big. But I also get to go to other places around the United States and lead conferences, speak, and do some different things. My greatest thing I do right now, I always knew I would invest in youth leaders once I became 140 years old like I am now. Uh, I want to share my wisdom with those guys, what I did stupid, what I did good, things like that, and just want to be a resource to people. So anyway, that's about me.
That's awesome. And so, with that, I don't know through all of his bio that if you heard, one of the things that's really, really cool about Rick is Rick was there when See You at the Pole started. And so, that is the conversation today. But before we jump into See You at the Pole and have a conversation about that specifically, I wanted to go back and talk about just for a brief moment on the prayer, care, and share initiative that you were talking about for the schools. What is that?
Yes, we're working with over 72 organizations. Every youth leadership organization you would know of, we meet fairly regularly. I'm on that team. It's the Campus Alliance. We're not an organization, but it's an alliance of all the major youth ministries together using the common language of prayer, care, and share. And what that means is we want to see, and as far as the prayer ministry goes, we want to see schools prayed for. We want to see prayer walks. We want to see students passionate about caring for their fellow students, praying for them by name. A lot of creative ways to do that, but we know that prayer is the on ramp to anything else that's going to happen on a campus. Praying together, praying with other youth pastors, praying with other churches. We need to be together. I mean, we're powerful together. It's like a wave we want to see of prayer, and we're starting to see that. We work with Claim Your Campus, 9-month mission trip, so many different organizations, Moms in Prayer, they're all working with us to try to see a prayer ministry on every campus. If we start that, if you prayer walk a school, all of a sudden the Lord shows you things about that school in your spirit, and you begin to care. What can I do to make a difference here? And we want to see that moved into action where student groups, campus clubs will rise up. Whether there's one there, we want students to join it. If not, we want the students to start one. 9-month mission trip is a great place to go to help start that. And those care ministries, caring for not just the students, but also the teachers. One of our groups just got together and served teachers the first week of school, helped them get everything going, put up their supplies and everything, just serving as we can, saying, we love you, we love the administrators, we love the teachers, we love the students, and serving the school. And when you serve, people invite you into what's going on there. You get to become part of the story and part of the narrative. So we don't want to there's really no agenda. We want to serve people because we love them, because Jesus told us that's what we're supposed to do. So we get to service, not we have to. It's a pleasure to go, and that's where students are from September to May. They're at the school. And so where's our mission field? It's the school. Students don't run to our church saying, please help me out. They're using a lot of trouble by the time they get to our office, but we want to go to them. And like 85 to 87% of students will never darken the door of any church. So another passion I have is, what about them? A lot of students, what's the percentage in each community that are actually involved in a growing dynamic discipleship situation, as opposed to those kids that are just kind of left out, hung out to dry? Uh, I have a real passion for them. And even the juvenile justice systems, we want to pray in those areas that we don't want anyone left out. Every student, every school, and we really mean that. Then, as a result of caring, we can be invited into people's lives to have conversations, not presentations, nothing like that. We're not in sales; we're in marketing. we want to we want to show people who Jesus is, be his hands and feet, and be his mouthpiece, and to talk with them in a gospel conversation about their life. How can we pray for them? How can we get into their life and really minister to them without a really strong agenda? Just genuinely being who Jesus wants to be on the campus. So anything we can do to see that on every campus, that would be so exciting. And we know there's a lot of campuses that don't even have youth ministries. We're trying to develop youth ministries with maybe some college students that would go out once a week, someone that would volunteer, even a couple that would invest in students but we want to see every student have the opportunity to have that prayer, care, and share, and also to minister on their campus. Everybody's called to ministry. Not all of us are called to full time or even part time ministry as far as being paid, but we're all called to the ministry. Last time I read the New Testament, and so all the commands of Jesus, uh, go make disciples, is for everybody. It's not just for an elect few.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I totally agree with that. And I think, as you said, there's tons of different opportunities to where you can jump in and get involved with that prayer, care, and share initiative. He mentioned 9 month mission. If you have listened to this podcast for a while, Travis Deans came on and spoke about 9 month mission. I'll tag that episode in the show notes just in case you haven't heard that one. And then the other thing with that is the student led Jesus groups, which are on campuses. We had an episode where Sean Kirkland came and talked about that. And I'll tag his episode in there as well. Both are great opportunities to get students going, to get students in charge of taking over their campus. And then once the students catch the fire, you get to sit back and watch it go. And it's really, really exciting and encouraging to see students with the heart for missions and a heart for evangelism and treating their campuses as the mission field, like Rick said. But, Rick, not to go too far into that, because that is, even though while that is important, and I think honestly it kind of goes hand in hand with our conversation today, we've talked about two elements that are readily available when it comes to opportunities for that prayer, care, and share initiative. We talked about 9 month mission. We talked about Jesus groups on campus. But the other thing is just the availability of See You at the Pole. And so, like Rick said, See You at the Pole's been around for a little while now. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But with See You at the Pole, there is a really, really cool opportunity where you can not only get your community involved, but you can also empower students to be the leaders on their campuses. And so, Rick, let's just go into a little bit more detail. What exactly is See You at the Pole, other than the obvious nature of it being at the pole?
Well, the pole's just a location. It could just as have well been see you at the curb or see you at the fire plug. It's just a location, and I'll tell you about that later on. I mean, what I see in the fall, just to begin with, is a possibility for youth leaders to have a crescendo of boldness. Meaning, in August they get a group of students together and say, "What can we do this fall to make noise on our campus for Jesus?" And they plan together from different churches. First thing they could do, which is September, is see at the pole and have some prayer time there. That is a gathering of students around the world on a specific day, September 25th in the morning at your school. Time to be announced by whoever does it, because it's student led, student initiated. And I see even after that, we've got Fields of Faith at places, coming up. We have Bring Your Bible to School Day. We have Dare to Share Live. There's so many cool things available that cost nothing, but really impact students. And so I think of it as a crescendo of boldness where students can just get more and more bold and encourage each other and have a great fall. So that's just one cool concept there. Uh, just a quick history. In 1989, I was at Crestmont Baptist Church. We had a wonderful season of ministry, probably about 120 to 150 students coming to our events, but they were not just coming, they were in teams that were enriching teams. They were trained, equipped, and discipled to understand what we all were about. So we were all on the same page trying to reach our school. We didn't just want to reach a few students, we wanted to claim the entire school. So we got bold with vision, which I think we've got to get back to bold vision anyway. And so we went with the theme verse, Joshua 6:16. Shout, for the Lord has given us the city. And so our theme that year was shout. Uh, Throughout the year, we had student groups. In fact, in the fall of that year, which was 1989, we had a high school group that met every week on Wednesday, a campus club. And I got to go in there and sit in kind of as a advisory sponsor. About 45 to 50 students skipping lunch or bringing their lunch into one of the rooms there and praying. It's just they started a group called God in Prayer, GAP. And so they were talking about friends, praying for friends, reading a quick Bible verse. Uh, During our middle school, every week, I believe it was on Friday, we had 150 students skip lunch so they could go in the gym, have a Devo, and pray for their students. And so some cool things were happening in our school Back then, there were only two schools in Burleson. Now there's about 142 because it's a growing area, but not that many. That's ministerially speaking. But there's a lot more. Anyway, at that time, though, and their students were close. We were actually networking with other churches, not even knowing what that was, but we loved each other. We worked with all youth pastors and pastors in town. We were all friends. And so it was a great time of what it should be in a community. Well, that entire year we were praying, especially specifically for some students that were lost and some that were away. And by the next year, which was 1990 in April, we had our discipleship weekend, which was, we call it Disciple Now. Some people call it different things. But what we did is we had a Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning where the students had 6 intensive studies and some wonderful worship together. On the Saturday night of that event, I had my ninth graders, about 13 of them, had a really good moment at their house. They were to put a marble by a candle on this plate that represented everything that was keeping them from being 100% sold out to Jesus. They took it really seriously, put that marble down. You could hear the clink and a very tactile thing. And then right after that, they decided, well, why don't we go to our schools and pray? Not at a flagpole. They just said, let's go to our schools. There were three schools represented and one homeschool. So they went to three schools: Crowley High School, Burleson High School, Hughes Middle School, and one of their, in fact, the pastor's son was homeschooled, so they went to his house. So they prayed in circle, and it was really funny because they took it seriously, but still some of them giggled, saying, "What if somebody saw us holding hands out here in a circle?" But they did it, and they wanted to make an impact. Well, in God's scheme of things, it just so happened we had a state meeting of youth leaders the next week, led by Chuck Flowers, who was our kind of our state guy, kind of what I do now, our state guy. And we were going to have a super summer leadership school for 3,500 students on 5 college campuses. And Chuck said, well, what could we do to follow this up? I don't want it just to be an event. Could we do something that might follow this up? And their theme, they took our theme, shout. And we had some little megaphones made up, those small little uh, deals, kind of as a giveaway. But I said, well, uh, our students just last weekend got together and prayed in front of their school. What if, and that's where everything began, what if they signed those little megaphones at Super Summer in their small groups? And then on commitment night, Thursday, we had the large megaphones and they all came, maybe knelt and prayed, and our leaders would pray over them and they'd sign their name, that we would all pray at the same time at the beginning of school. And so no plans made yet. And so they said, yeah, that would work. Well, we're going to have an evangelism conference coming up at then Reunion Arena, which is no longer there, but we're going to have 20,000 there. And I got to lead the first kind of camp-like worship music there. They said, could we present it there too? We said, sure. Well, where would we meet when would we meet first? Back then, it was not the fourth Sunday of September, but that's what it is now. But I think we set the second week as our date that year, and found out we needed more time for students to get ready, throughout the year. But what would we do? Where would we meet? Well, I shared what when my pastor was from Amarillo, and at one time he had told me as we were driving by the Burleson post office, we went by a flag, and he said, in his best Amarillo, he said, you can say anything you want to under the American flag, almost like that. And so I said, you know, and they were going, yeah, every school has a flagpole, which we found out later they don't, but most of them do. And so my friend Neil McClendon, a 19-year-old college student then, I think 19 or 20s, just said, yeah, see you at the poll. So it went that fast in that meeting. And at first everybody went, that's kind of cheesy. Who'd want to do something like that? And then we eventually decided that we would give that a shot in September. We presented it at Reunion Arena, and Neil presented it after I did some music. He said, okay, on count of three, 1, 2, 3, say, I'll see you at the poll. And we've got the video of them saying that, which was very cool. So they did it. And not only that, some states by us in Texas, I believe it was Louisiana and Arkansas, and maybe even Oklahoma, had heard about it. And by the September time, 47,000 students showed up to do the first year seat at the poll. Now, that was just us. And again, in God's planning, the very next January 1991, we had a national network of youth ministries national conference. So youth ministries were there from all over the nation, and we had someone from England, Israel, and Australia there. And they said, "What do you guys?" We were just presenting kind of best practices. Hey, tell us about what you guys are doing in Texas. I was leading worship at that. My friend Chuck and Billy Beecham were there, and some other a couple of my interns were there. We shared on slides what we were doing, showed pictures of students being at the pole, and they people were saying, "Well, can we do that too?" We said, "Well, do you have a school? Do you have a flagpole? Do you pray?" And so before school, and we knew legally it had to be student initiated and student led. This was all about empowering students. Nothing, nothing about media, nothing about taking pictures, nothing about bragging on, hey, look at these cool kids showed up. It's just about praying. And so by that next year, not only did we have it nationally, but through FCA and through Young Life, all these organizations jumped right on it. Yeah, we can do that. And even in England, Israel, and Australia, they jumped on it. They said, "Can we do it too?" We said, "Well, do you have flags and schools in your country? Do you pray?" Yeah. Well, by the next year, it was global. It wasn't just national because the Lord had set it up. And I think after that, God just kind of told us, thanks for, doing what you did. Now get out of the way. I'm going to do some other things here. Because as a result that we never dreamed of, there were after poll parties, pre-poll parties. Students would go there and say, "Could we do this every week? Hey, we could do a club after this." And so we saw students saved, we saw students' lives change, we saw clubs pick up, we saw prayer groups spring up. Nothing we'd ever dreamed about. It was just like, let's get together once. And so God took that, and when you empower students, they have really good creativity, and you raise the bar about here, and they're going to operate up here. And so often we keep the bar down here. And I love young people. That's why I still do what I do. The same Holy Spirit lives in them that lives in anybody. They're not the church of the future. They're the church of now. In fact, many of them are rocking their world right now because of their maturity and their ability to pray and care. So uh, that's kind of how that transpired. We're in our 34th year. We don't promote it much, but the cool thing is when people gather together, and the students need to gather, adults can be there, youth leaders can be there. They just need to stand back. We can help them prepare, but we need to let them do the deal. And once that happens, it's exciting. And then they meet other Christians on campus. Hey, I didn't know that you were a Christ follower. Hey, that's awesome, man. Come. Yeah, we don't even promote FCA or Young Life or First Priority or anything at those, but you find out about those through your fellow friends. And so it almost creates a network of students on campus that know each other, are believers, and there's power to that. So who knows what's going to happen? It's different every place because every student's creative. It's their deal, and so we gave it away, uh, and I've made $0 on it, and I don't want anything for it. It's fun to watch. It's good to give away something that will empower students, and we want to see that happen. Last year we were up 35%. This year, Billy Beecham out of Student Discipleship Ministries provides T-shirts and artwork and posters and things. If people want to do that, that's not totally not necessary, but they're just frantically getting things off the shelves, T-shirts and posters. It seems like people are excited about it. Might mention where you go to find that information is just syatp.com, cuatthepole.com, syatp.com. But we've had a great time with that. I've just Sunday I heard 3 adults came up to me uh, at church, and I was advertising our small group of campus missionaries. They came up to me and said I was at the very first See at the Pole in 1990. One of the three said I was saved at See at the Pole, and
That's
blew me
awesome.
away, blew me away. So I'm just saying, man, when I hear stories like that, thank you, Jesus, for letting us play our part in being a link in the chain of your events.
That's awesome. Yeah. Really, really cool. And so with that though, for hopefully if you're listening to this, it was a really, really simple, straightforward approach. It was like, hey, what if we did this? And the cool thing about it is that really hasn't changed. And so I guess the way that I would like to kind of take this conversation now is for the ones that have a See You at the Pole presence in their community, because I've worked in 3 different towns as far as a youth pastor, and I've worked in 2 towns that had a strong See You at the Pole presence, and then I've worked in a town that does not have a strong See You at the Pole presence. But for the ones that do have a presence in the community, how can youth pastors step in and reinforce it? How can they encourage it? And then also just what are some steps or opportunities where maybe they can help it grow too?
Yeah. what I do, just personally, still, I have a group here in Spring, Texas. Uh, I have a group called Campus Missionaries, and they represent about 6 different ministries that they're on their campus. We get together, I buy them T-shirts, give them out to help them, and posters, little packets, armbands, things that will help them promote it. But we get together and say, here's what you can do, and here's what you don't need to do. You need to make sure your administration is clued in. You got to go talk to them, be kind, uh, and make sure it's student led, student initiated. Here's the way you do that. Help them outline it so it comes off well. Some students leadership teams have kind of taken it different directions, turned it almost into a worship service or let's do 18 songs and pray for 3 minutes. That's not what it is. It's not a chance for somebody to get up and preach and promote their Wednesday night youth event. It's about prayer. So sometimes prayer stations is an idea where you pray for parents, school, educators, other students. Just they can walk around that. Small group is better. You see these pictures of everybody around the pole. Maybe an opener like that's good, but you can't hear if there's 180 people there what somebody's praying. So start together, get in small groups, hand out something. If you're going to do a song or two, make sure they're familiar. Don't do your favorite off, maybe your youth ministry knows that song and nobody else does, and all they're going to do is watch you sing. So if you're going to worship, do a worship song. Make sure it's done well, and do that as, if you want to nothing wrong with that. But then get immediately to prayer because that's what this is about is prayer. And then I think that getting into the groups, letting them know how to do that, maybe even having a leader in each group, dividing up their school leadership. Once your major team is together, have them go to their school, talk it up, whether it's FCA, First Priority, whatever their club is. How can we do this and be effective? And then make sure it's done well in the time frame, and make sure they quit long enough before class starts so nobody's late to school. We never want to get in the way of what our administrators want. We want to leave a good taste in their mouth and say, we prayed for you today. We prayed for your family, and that we want to give represent Jesus well. So well planned, good organization. We can help them know what to do, and just listen to them. Listening, hey, what would you guys want to see here? Let them have that input, and then make sure we guide them into making sure it's done well. So that hopefully that answers that question a little bit. And then there's a little manual that comes from SDM. It's also online, how to prepare for See at the Pole. Just some simple steps, what to do, what not to do. But
Yeah.
it's very important that it's student led and student initiated. It's not time for even an FCA leader, adult leader, to get up and say, "Let's gather
Yeah.
together." That's not no bueno. We
Yeah.
want it to be very legal and well accepted. And if they bring donuts or anything like that, make sure there's not a stitch of trash left. Uh, Leave it
Yeah.
better than you found it, and everybody appreciates it. So it's not a right; it's a privilege, and
Yeah.
so we get the opportunity to go there and make it about prayer. I mean, bring prayer lists and challenge students that this isn't all there is, to continue praying after that in some form or
Yeah.
fashion.
Yeah. So, and I think with this, kind of talking about how we can reinforce or build the presence that's already there, kind of answered the same question with how do you start one. And so maybe for the ones that are like, oh well, hey, I don't have this in my community, or at least that I
Mm-hmm.
know of, maybe where could they look to see if there's a presence already? Like, where would you recommend they look to see if there's a presence of See You at the Pole that already exists? And if there isn't, maybe what are some things to definitely not forget as you're getting prepared?
Well, I would definitely talk to if there's an FCA or a first priority group there. Has anyone planned on doing a See at the Pole? And very important, think kingdom, not my youth group. Think kingdom, because not one of us is knocking it out of the ballpark right now, with 87% of students not even wanting to go to church. Uh, it's not about siloing. If we silo and think that one church or 3 churches can do it all, just
Yeah.
look at the results. No. So think kingdom. And so have those students just ask around other people they know. Have you heard about anything starting? Well, maybe we could do that and talk maybe an FC. If you have a campus ministry, it's great to go through that ministry. They already have administrative presence and permissions. And then you just go to your administrator and say, hey, we'd like to do See at the Pole. Here's what it is. You can even give them a paper on that. We'd like to do it at 7 a.m. to 7:30. School starts at 7:45 maybe. We will be quitting at 7:30. It's not about any pictures or any kind of media or anything. All we're going to do is gather at the flagpole and pray. Uh, they can even, you can even call it footprints on campus. Doesn't even have to be called See at the Pole. My desire is they just get together and pray that day. So whatever it takes to get the community of faith students together, let that be what it is. See at the Pole works because it's got a name recognition now, and it's accepted as legal. And so there's also on See at the Pole, syatp.com. There are legal uh, things that you can do legally on there and things that you can't. Could I mention my other resources too, because that would help? Campus
Sure.
Connections. Okay, we just came out with a free book for campus ministry called it's at www.campusconnections.info. Campusconnections.info. There's a 6 chapter book on there on how to do campus ministry. The very last chapter of that is all about legality, and it's been very well researched and through Kelly Shackelford and some of the key leaders that we have nationwide. And so it'll give the legal things to do there, but it'll also give some ways to talk to administrators and how to serve and a lot of other things. There's also an awesome way to pray piece on there, a leader and a student guide, which is a great follow up to See at the Pole, which will drive your students into prayer groups on campus, prayer triplets, where they pray 3 times a week for 3 lost people, and it's 3 people praying, based on Jeremiah 33:3. It's not a gimmick. It's something that works. I'm in a prayer triplet. In fact, I just got off of it this morning with 2 of my friends. We do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so it's a very powerful thing to pray for people. And we've seen results all this year just through my prayer triplet. Um, but I would just say that they need to have a plan to do it well. They may want to do a pre-poll prayer meeting where everybody gets together and prays over the morning. They might want to do a see you after the poll party where people get together and say, they saw you this morning. Hey, come tonight to this big rally we're having. I would throw out this idea. A rally doesn't always have to be the worship thing and the speaker thing, because how many times have we done the worship thing and the speaker thing? Make it fun. Make it okay. If it's for lost people, get into the lost person's mind. Say, what would they enjoy doing? And at the end of that, you share the gospel, share the good news, but make it about, let's gather together. You can show a video of the schools, take video at each school, show you, hey, here's what the students did this morning. Have something fun, an event, and maybe even have some food. Sometimes that gathers people. But ice cream, a snow cone machine outside, just a gathering for students where you get the opportunity to share. Maybe have some students share testimony. It doesn't have to be, most of our lost kids don't know our major Christian worship bands or our major Christian speakers. They go, who cares? But if we could find a way to be relevant, it might be worth it. That's just from the old man here that's seen too many. Hey, we have a worship band and we have a speaker, and even I go, well, okay, been there, done that. Got the T-shirt.
Yeah.
So
No, I
be
think
creative.
that's a great point. And the thing is if you're genuinely wanting it to be student led, then let students lead. Like,
Go for it.
I mean, it's not a hard thing to come by. Find the students that are in your group that are passionate and let them run. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm really into empowering students, if you can't tell.
and that's awesome. I think every youth pastor should be into empowering students.
I do
And
too.
so, with that, last thing that I can kind of think of to kind of wrap up this episode, and I ask this of all my different guests that are on the show. First off, Rick, if you have a word of wisdom or a word of encouragement for youth pastors that are listening to this, and then finally, if there's anything else connection wise that you want to share about resources or how people can get in contact with you, probably it wouldn't be a bad idea to talk about National Network of Youth Ministry just for a second. Just so for the people that aren't familiar with what it is, they can maybe go get connected and check out and see if there's a network in their community already or how to start a network. But
Yeah, I'd love to
first
start
off,
there,
okay,
Brent, with the
go
network if we could
go
do
for it.
that.
Sure.
Because go to youthworkers.net or nnym.org. It will drive you to a directory of youth pastors networks all across the U.S. And we want to encourage everyone to join a network. I think one reason why people don't network is their vision is too small. I would challenge youth leaders to get a network, a vision so large for your community that you have to have a network. There's no way you can do it by yourself. There's no way you can do it without God's anointing. So
Definitely.
have a big enough vision that way. And then the fact is, if you're in a network, you'll tend to stay almost 10 years at a church. I'm a long timer. I did it because I had friends we were all around the town and we always supported each other. I could go gripe, I could whine, I could pray. Uh, just one story, one of my friends, the day before my mom passed away, I was to bring him a flash drive for a network meeting we were having. He said, "What are you doing bringing me this? Let me take care of that for you. You just sit there, you go take care of your mom. Let me just pray for you." I mean, this was a genuine relationship that's way beyond let's go get coffee because we're both youth pastors. This was a death relationship that is meaningful. He's one of my best friends. And so what we want to do in networks, we tend to stay 10 years. People without a network that are siloing on their own and usually fumbling around trying to find what they're doing. They don't have a long range goal. They don't have a strategy. They don't have a philosophy. They're just there kind of doing maintenance. And by the way, that's why we're losing a million kids a year. They don't have a real strategy for what they're trying to develop that student into. If you're not in a network, you tend to stay like 3 years. It's like a 3 year gig, 3 year gig, maybe quit, maybe burn out, do something else. My challenge is stay it for life. I'm 73. I'm old, but I'm not tired. I'm still doing it. Still relate with students. Still have a group that I just had a student last night text me saying, "Rick, how do I study the Bible for myself?" I mean, just it's not about age. It's not about anything. It is about commitment. It's about relationships. Genuinely loving students, their parents, what they're into, being relevant, being loving, and being authentic and genuine. I think if we're those things, that's important. Networks do this for you. In fact, you and I, we're in National Network Texas here. Relationships, it's all about that. Prayer, we've prayed together. We were at Accelerate Texas together and having some good times there. It's also about strategies. What strategy? What's the thing we can do to reach more students faster? Fast just means multiplication, not addition. We're really into, I had 80 students in my group. So what? Jesus didn't say, count how many you had. He said, make disciples. And he's talking multiplication. So they have to become multiplying disciples. And so it's very important we have a strategy for that. And if a networker, like when I was just starting out, I found people and said, how do I do this? What do I need to do? And I was blessed to have some mentors. I was a sponge. And so I learned from really good people. So strategies and then resources. Why do we all have to buy stuff when I can loan you something I have? I may have a van for your weekend thing. I may have a series that really meant a lot to me, or something that I can share with you. Maybe a bounce house, or maybe a gaga pit, or something that's portable. You need it for your outreach. Hey, take it, knock it out, man. Go reach some students for Jesus. Again, that requires a kingdom mindset. I think networking, if anything, it lets us know we're allies against a common enemy. Our job is to get as many students out of Satan's youth group and get it in our youth group, our meaning Big C Church. It's not which one it is. We're not.
Yeah.
It's not about stealing young people from another youth ministry. My goodness, that's so old. That's because the vision is small. When your vision is we want to reach every student in every school here, then all of a sudden, how do I build my kingdom in my church goes away, and all of a sudden, how can we all together collaboratively and strategically do what we need to do in our demographic area, reach these schools, reach these students, see their lives transform. Man, what if the bully in school got saved? What if the coach got bolder? What can we do? What if our educators became mentors
Yeah.
as well? What if we doubled our leadership right now? How many more students could we reach? So big vision, measuring things that matter biblically, not numerically or just how many people showed up or participated. Have a
Yeah.
real goal, which is discipleship. So, networking does that. Networking, you get resources, you get friendships that last forever. That's the main thing, man. I mean, you and I doing this right now. That's because of our relationship. And
Yeah.
you know, you can count on me. You can call me about anything. I can probably call you about anything right now.
Sure.
And man, we need that. We can't do it alone. We're
Yeah.
better together is our thing there. You know, same team. When we used to play basketball in middle school, and you'd get the ball and go like this. Wait a minute, same team. Okay, we're not against each other, man. Same team.
Yeah, definitely. And for the ones that are listening to this, regardless of where you are, I would encourage you to go check out nnym.org for more than one reason. First off, if you don't have a network, get on and find hopefully one that's in your area. If there's not one in your area, be the voice to start it. You can register a group on National Network so it is on there for other people to see. Or you might be like me when I went and met Rick last year, or actually earlier this year, I guess it was, and not really
Yeah,
necessarily
February.
last year. Yeah, it was February of this year. Last school year. We talk in campus years. But with that being said, it was one of those things where Rick started telling me about all this stuff, and I had spoke to Travis Deans, who's also involved in National Network of Youth Ministry, and I was like, "Well, I already do that. Like, we already have a community." And their
Mm-hmm.
response was, "Great, then get on there and let us know about it," kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, either whether you don't have a community or you have a thriving community, go to National Network of Youth Ministries, nnym.org, and either make sure that your group is on there and the contact information is up to date, or get on there to try and find a network in your community or start one if there's not one there. And I say community, like having your contact information up there is important, because what happens is when you go on and you type in your location, it's going to show you the networks that you're closest to, and it's going to give
Mm-hmm.
a contact for the director or the leader of that network. And so if you don't have up to date contact information on there, a good email or a good phone number, they're not going to be able to connect with you, and they're going to not be able to join your network as they desire to get into that fellowship and that networking community. So
Yeah,
be
my whole
sure.
story when I first started out, there was a community of youth leaders like that, and I went to it, and I kind of felt like the new kid on the block, uh, trying to break into the cool club, to sit at the cool kids table,
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully those guys quickly brought me in. Back then, before we had anything like this, network started in 1983. That was about 10 more years before that, and they brought me in, and I made a commitment. When somebody new comes to my community, I want them to feel part of the team immediately. And when someone moves into your area, if you're in the network, you'll see that they can go there, or if they come to us and say, "Hey, I'm moving to your town, Abilene, Monahans, Lubbock. Is there a network there, or who do I go to help?" We send them that name, and they're stronger, and then you're stronger as well because you have another ally with you.
Yes.
So it's very, very important to be on that registry. And plus, there's
Yes.
some great blogs, information, special events that are on there, and you'll have your own calendar, your own page. If you're the director, there's some cool stuff to have, but mostly it's a
And
directory.
And also, if you're a podcast listener, since you're listening to this podcast, they also do the free refills podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, and
And
network
so,
conversations
and
with key
network
leaders from across the
conversations.
nation. Yeah,
So they
yeah.
they have podcasts as well that you can check out and listen to. But okay, well, Rick, if we're going in reverse, what is your word of wisdom or word of encouragement for youth pastors? And then we will close out this episode.
I would say whatever you're doing in ministry, multiply it to other youth ministries around you that may not be thriving as much. Take one or two and invest in them. I'd also say invest in 12 students, just like do what Jesus did and make disciples who make disciples. I would also say be a mentor to people around you. Share your wisdom with them. Live a life worthy of imitation, because the scariest verse in the Bible to me is Luke 6:46b that says, when they're fully trained, they'll be just like their teacher. So we need to kind of be that example. Uh, Realize that students are bailing today because the churches are unloving, they're inauthentic, they're irrelevant. Answer the questions that they're. Give them an opportunity to ask the hard questions and don't be scared of that. Be real with your students and realize that they need to be a part of the church now, not by the time they become big people or whatever adults after 18. Right now, they need to be a part of the church. If they do that, they're not going to bail by the time they're age 16 or 17. So, hopefully that's some wisdom.
Hey, that sounds like great wisdom to me. And so, with that being said, for everybody listening, that's all that we have for this show. If you're a frequent listener of our podcast, all we ask is that you do your part to get our podcast out to the greater student ministry audience. We are in year 4 of doing this thing, and we are still definitely not reaching every single youth pastor out there. So, share our podcast with your youth pastor friends, or tag a specific episode on social media and tag us in it as well at Talk Student Men. Either way, be sure to just let us know that you are sharing the conversation. And then finally, if you'd like to be like Rick and be on the show in the future, this show does not exist without guests. And so we want to interview every youth pastor. That is our goal. That is our desire. And so in and out of youth ministry, anything that can be a benefit. If you are passionate about ministry, we want to hear from you. You can reach out to us on social media, or you can send us an email, podcast@studentministryconversations.org. And we'd love to set up a time that you can come on the show with us. But Rick, this conversation has been great. A really, really exciting topic. And from being at See You at the Polls when I was in high school and junior high, to being a youth pastor that's been a part of See You at the Polls, to now seeing the administrative and the kind of back side of See You at the Polls. Man, it's been a fun journey, a fun opportunity just to see students thrive and see students get connected and get passionate for what they need to be passionate for. And man, I'm excited for listeners to hear this one. With that being said, for all of you that are listening, we hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time.